welcome back to another episode of the Mike Bartner Show, and it is maybe the biggest episode of the entire show's history. So I had to have Babiak on for the Quinn Hughes and Tristan Jarry special. Babiak, how are we doing?
I'm shocked, man. I've been calling the NHL the Nothing Happens League for like 6 months, and now something happened.
Yeah, we had Rantanen last year, and then this year, like it was building towards Quinn Hughes, but like I didn't think it was going to happen until the offseason. But yeah, Quinn Hughes heading to the Minnesota Wild for Marco Rossi, Zeev Boyum, Liam Ogren in a first round pick. Happened last night at around like 8 p.m. I was unfortunately on for Bleacher Report, so I couldn't crank out the videos immediately. And yeah, I tweeted it at the time. I think that both teams did pretty good with this. If you're Minnesota, you have not won a playoff series in over 10 goddamn years. I feel like people don't realize that with Minnesota. And it's why you were pretty adamant about Kaprizov not re-signing until eventually he did. But there has not been a lot of success in Minnesota. They haven't made a conference final since their third ever season in Minnesota back in 2003. So although you can say that they are mortgaging the future a lot here, this is a franchise that their best player is what, 28, 29 years old. And now you can say Quinn Hughes is maybe their best player, but they need to go all in. Bill Guerin has been on the job since what, 2020, 2021. And for him, he did the Parisi and Suter buyouts to build to eventually 2025, 2026. So you draft and develop as good as they had the last couple of years. So you have Judd Brackett, by the way, is like the best scout. He deserves a $500,000 raise because he drafted all these players and he drafted Quinn Hughes, funny enough, when he was in Vancouver. But yeah, if you're Minnesota, yes, this could end poorly, but you don't have much to lose when you look at the overall success of this franchise. That's my initial thoughts. Babiak, well, what do you think? What's your initial?
Yeah, I mean, from the purely Minnesota perspective, they need to go all in, and now they are going all in. They've had the same flaw basically the entire time they've had Kaprizov, which is there is very little offense around Kaprizov. Since they
Mm-hmm.
started the Kaprizov era, you draft Matt Boldy. Matt Boldy exceeds all expectations. He's a legit first line guy. That still was not really enough to fix the problem, though, right? They still do not have a
Yeah.
guy who you look at and say that's a true number one center. Their depth, their second line wings being these days second line. Who's on that? Zuccarello and Marcus Johansson. That's not Stanley Cup caliber.
Johansson.
Uh,
Yeah. Cost effective, but not Stanley Cup caliber.
yeah, these aren't bad players, but like for pure offense, pure scoring, they're in an even worse position than Carolina outside of their top two guys. Um,
Mm-hmm.
their defense has been very solid for years, although they haven't really had that dynamic playmaker. The hope is, give it 2 years, 3 years, Zeev Boyum becomes that. So let's jump
Mm-hmm.
to the now. Immediately add the second best defender and second best defenseman in the entire NHL. I would feel pretty confident saying that, right? Not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
pushback, clear number two at this point.
Me a year ago maybe would have argued for Adam Fox, but not anymore. I died on that hill.
Yeah. So, hopefully Minnesota now is in a position where they can be serious contenders. I still do have
Mm-hmm.
some questions about the offensive depth, right? Like you got your number one
Mm-hmm.
D-man. That's great. This second line is still extremely underpowered on offense compared to Vegas, compared to Colorado, compared especially to Dallas, as far as like how far down the lineup are you getting meaningful scoring. But maybe Quinn Hughes, power play quarterback, great breakout passer, can kind of turn a lot of these guys into better scorers.
Yeah, yeah. The offense was badly needed with this team. It was a lot of very solid two-way players and even more so defensive guys like Joel Eriksson Ek, low end first line center, more so of a second line center on an actual contender. Boldy, when you add in the defensive aspects of his game, he becomes an elite first liner, but not that true 90 to 100 point guy. Brodin and Spurgeon have been very underrated the last decade because of the defensive side of the game, but never were dynamite offensively. And Brock Faber, we had high expectations after that 47-point season. And I'm not saying that he's some kind of bum, but he kind of immediately got miscast as this true superstar or future superstar right off the rip, elite number one defenseman. And like the second season was pretty disappointing. And I think that kind of led to this deal where they're like, Rock Favorite probably can't be a number one on a legit Stanley Cup quality team. I think he could definitely be a number two, especially if he's playing with the Quinn Hughes. But yeah, when looking at this team, I think that you can pretty easily say they have the best top four in the NHL in terms of defensemen. I think they have the best tandem. But as you mentioned, like at the end of the day, if you don't have just killers on the forward core, you look at recent Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers, obviously back to back. Vegas had their top nine was beyond loaded. Of course, Colorado had like one of the best top nines. That's still the big question mark going forward. But in terms of a defensive team, they're about as good as it gets. I think that there has to be another move with this, just considering Danila Urov still has a lot of value and he's still like 3 years away from being, if at all, I'm not even acting like he's going to be a second line center. But yeah, you don't make this Quinn Hughes move and then don't go out and address the second line center position when it is Danila Urov or Ryan Hartman right now. That is the one thing with this team. You're not going to splurge like this and then be like, we're all good on this front. So in looking at what could potentially come next, I think it has to be a second line center. Where they rank in the rest of the NHL, I want to get your thoughts on this. I think that they're still behind Dallas. I think they're still behind Colorado. They're still behind Tampa and a healthy Tampa and Florida. But I think that they definitely elevated from like the Washington Capitals, Los Angeles Kings tier of like safe playoff team, maybe can win a round or two, into like the Edmonton, which we'll get into them if they can fix their goaltending situation. They're back in that top tier, like Carolina, Vegas tier. They're firmly in that second tier of contenders. The only problem is, of course, they need to beat the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche just to get to the fucking Western Conference Finals. Like they're the Central's an absolute war. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you think that they're in that top tier, second tier, maybe even the third tier?
Um, I think you're basically on the right track. I will say it's especially after the ranting into Carolina trade last year, which I was very overreactive to. Carolina's the cup favorite. This is going to fix their offense.
Yeah.
Uh, I was burned by that once. I'm not going to get burned by that again. I'm going to say I need to see like a month at least of how Quinn Hughes fits into this lineup and how the offense
Yeah.
changes with him before I'm really on board for that. I think long term, that's definitely the most likely outcome here, that they end up in that, they're still not a tier one team. There's still way too many questions on offense, but a solid tier two contender. And solid tier two contenders do win the Stanley Cup sometimes. It hasn't happened
Yeah,
in the last
definitely.
few years, I don't think. I think you've had, a good run of 4 or 5 seasons in a row of every cup winner being like one of the top dogs going into the
Mhm.
season. But, tier two teams do win cups sometimes. Like St. Louis, that was a tier two contender
Yeah.
when they won it.
They were playing like a tier one towards the end of the season, but I agree in terms of roster talent,
Yeah, they're
definitely a tier two.
a tier two that gets hot at the right time. That's how you beat the
Mhm.
tier one teams. Um, but I do again. I need to at least see with my own eyes a little bit what this team looks like with Quinn Hughes, or if it's like such a set system that the transition is not super smooth. I don't think this will be a ranting into Carolina level
Yeah.
disaster, but I do wonder if going to a more defensive team with higher pressure, higher stakes games, if we will see a little bit less offensive dynamic work from Quinn Hughes. Not that he's going to turn into a
Yeah.
bad player, but that he will be less free to be like full Quinn Hughes. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying to a degree, but they kind of just let Kaprizov do his own thing. Like John Hines is not Rod Brindamore in terms of like I stick to the system. If you don't fit the system, I'm number one. Like my system is number one. You're gonna get traded. You're not gonna work here if you end up not fitting into the system. Quinn Hughes just does like everything at such a high clip. Like if this was Quinn Hughes back in 2021, 2022, and somehow he got traded off his ELC and he was just a solely offensive defenseman, I would agree with you, but he is one of the most translatable guys in the NHL. And granted, he hasn't had that one amazing playoff rate run just because he's only been in the playoffs twice. I think he had like 11 points in 14 games in the 2024 run. But I think he's going to fit in well, especially when it's not even like a Rantanen, you were subtracting Natchez, an objectively good player. Not saying Rossi's not bad or Boyum's bad, but Natchez is a better player than those two. It's not like there's a big subtraction and Natchez went to Colorado and immediately became a stud. I think we can agree that Rossi and Boyum right now absolutely do not come close to the impact of a Quinn Hughes, even if, as you say, it's like it's not a perfect transition. It's 85-90% of Quinn Hughes, at least for this season. I think we could agree that he blows them out of the water. And they've been playing so good of late. They started out like 1-4-1 or something. Like John Hines should have got fired. I still think he should have got fired. I don't think he's a good coach. I think that might be what holds them back compared to like Quinn Hughes not translating to the team. But yeah, I think that they'd probably be my fifth or sixth best team in the NHL just because what Quinn Hughes brings from a blue line. Like Z Boyum, you thought maybe you could bring it after his hot start. And granted, like most of that came on the power play. Quinn Hughes, you're now injecting 25 minutes a night of just pure brilliance offensively, especially and defensively. And I think someone like Brock Faber, you look at the J Fresh card, you look at the analytics, and it was like objectively bad last season. I think he might be, at least on Minnesota, the biggest beneficiary, even if he doesn't play with Quinn Hughes, just because his workload is going to be so much easier. He's going to go down to 22, 23 minutes a night, play with like a Brodin on the second pair. And I think it's just a perfect fit. But as you mentioned, there's still more work to be done. You don't just stop here.
No, no. If you just stop right here, I think the most likely outcome is probably still a round one loss to
Mhm.
either Colorado or Dallas. And that might happen anyway. That might happen even if you add that 2C, but I think you need to do more work to give yourself a better shot, at least.
Yeah, definitely. And again, with the Central Division and like the timeline, it's not even like I think Colorado. I mean, as long as they have McKinnon and McCarr, they'll be good. But I do think that their timeline probably is in like 2 to 3 years. Dallas isn't going anywhere. Like Dallas is all of their core pieces are between the ages of 22 to 27. So yes, there may be some people that are like, hold on to them. And then in 3 to 4 years, the Central Division could be yours. We're already seeing the Anaheim Ducks emerge. We're already seeing, I know that's not Central, but the San Jose Sharks. I think Chicago is going to be a good team. Utah, like this notion that it would have just like been a parting of the seas in 2028 for the Minnesota Wild. And even with Minnesota, I was looking it up. Like, yes, they have young guys like Boldy, Wallstead, Faber, Rossi, Urov, Ogren, Boyum, but their best player is 29 years, or he's 28 or 29 years old. Eck is 29 or 30 years old. And they got some old ass people on this team. Like Spurgeon and Brodin are key pieces to this team. And if they start regressing, like especially now at this point, with Juracek not really panning out, like once those guys start regressing, they really could fall off quick. And as well as Matt Zuccarello, as well as Hartman, Polino. So even this team was not some young up and coming team. They were like a hodgepodge of guys from different age ranges. So you got to go for it. You got to go for it, especially when Kirill Kaprizov, you sign him to this big contract at 28, 29 years old. And Quinn Hughes is only 26 years old. It's not even like you're going for a guy that's 31 years old and you're only getting 2 to 3 elite prime seasons. Like, hopefully, and we'll talk about it next up with the extension talks. Hopefully, you can re-sign him, and then this is just your team for the next. Are you going to also doubt?
No, no. What I'm giving that look
Extension?
for is that I low key think that getting only 2 prime seasons is exactly what's going to happen. But we can cross that bridge later.
No. Let's cross it. That was next up, talking about the extension because I think that they could extend them. I think that they might have to overpay him like they did with Kaprizov. Like we both agreed, like yeah, that's like a B- B deal, but you overpay that level of talent, and especially I feel like they're going to be inclined to extend Quinn Hughes considering what they gave up, and it will be possible. I was looking at the financials. They can move off Jakub Trenin. That was just a horrible contract. He has one more year at 3.5 compared to when Quinn Hughes would sign his extension. Middleton has 2 years at 4.35. Like they can make the money work. And I think that they will. This isn't the most desirable market of all time, but it's not Winnipeg. Quinn Hughes gets to play with Kirill Kaprizov. Yes, there is in the back of their head and back of everybody's head the thought that maybe he just wants to go to New Jersey, but I think Minnesota is in a much better spot, at least right now, than New Jersey. Like I made a video on it a couple of days ago. New Jersey's not this like utopia to potentially go win. Yes, it would be nice, but they got their own goddamn problems, and they have been severely disappointing the last like 2 to 3 years. So I think that they're going to have a really good shot, and especially with the salary cap changes, they're going to be able to offer him that 8 year deal compared to if he got traded next season. If he ended up going to free agent, if he went to free agency, you can only sign a 6 year deal. They can give him that 8 year deal, and most of Minnesota's core pieces under Bill Guerin have re-signed. But what's your thoughts?
I mean, after they did manage to re-sign Kaprizov, which I was very skeptical of, I think that they're going to try really hard to sign Quinn Hughes. They certainly will have the money for it. The money is not an
They'll make the
issue with
money.
the rising salary cap. I guess then the issue just becomes a twofold thing of number one, the money's not an issue for pretty much any other team either with the salary cap. I have no
Yeah,
idea if he's
they're
really
pretty
that
shy. So.
committed to New Jersey, but even if not, it's, maybe he sees a better future, better chances at like, oh, well, Carolina has enough money to pay me, and that would be maybe a tier one contender if I go there. Maybe being the number one D man in Toronto, finally giving them a number one D
His
upgrade over
hometown
Morgan
team, kind
Riley
of.
after like a decade and a half of Morgan Riley would put
Mhm.
them into tier one. I mean, I'm not saying that will happen. I'm saying that's, it's possible, right? There's a bunch of different places that Quinn Hughes would slot really nicely into on paper. Um, then the other question is, maybe his main concern is I really want to win and I couldn't win in Vancouver, so I'm looking forward to winning in Minnesota. Well, if Minnesota is going to be a first round exit team this year,
Yeah.
are you going to get him on board for 8 more years if it's potentially like first round exit is your most likely outcome every year, right? High ceiling, but the most
Mhm.
likely scenario is just going to be you keep running into the brick wall of Dallas and Colorado for a few years. Um, I think he might very well try the McDavid thing where, okay, I'll give you guys like a
Ooh, I
2 or 3 year commitment and like you prove to me that you're serious about building this
Mhm.
further. And if you don't address the problems, if you don't add a number 2C in like 4 years of being in Minnesota, I'm still young enough that I can walk to the market and get, at that point, it'd be a 6 year contract, but like a max money 6 year contract as a UFA.
Mhm. Yeah, I did not think about the McDavid aspect. I do agree that this year's playoff run might determine it. Like, if they get absolutely the doors blown off him, I don't think that he's going to re-sign on July 1st. I definitely don't think he's going to sign like some kind of 8-year contract because, as you mentioned, like it seems like he cares about winning. That's why he wanted out of Vancouver because it just got so toxic and they were just so far away from being at all like an actual contender. It's crazy how that happened in like 18 months. But yeah, I didn't consider that. But we thought with Kaprizov that maybe he would go down kind of like a shorter term route, and that didn't end up happening. It seems like guys do like playing in Minnesota. Like that's all I'll say. Like all the hype that happened with Kaprizov, and then he was the first one to sign. He signed before McDavid. He signed before Eichel. He signed before Kyle Connor. So I think that they're going to make a strong run for it. I don't think it's going to be. I think if they make the Western Conference Finals, I think he resigns, and I think it might honestly be like somewhat of a team friendly deal. I think if they get blown out, I could see him either say like, "You got to give me like $18 million to stay here," or
Which he'd
"I'm
be
just playing
worth,
out this
by the
season."
way. He would be
Yes,
worth
yes,
that
yes.
record contract for a D man.
Yeah, I agree. Like, no, but I'm just saying, like, compared to like again, when you see McDavid take the deal that he did, when you see Eichel at 13.5, I'm just saying, like, again, I don't hate the Kaprizov contract. I think it's a solid contract and something that you had to do if you were Minnesota. But yeah, like this year's playoff run, if it could be the difference between $1 to $2 million on his next contract. Now, when talking about next season, there is always just the possibility that he just says, "I don't want to resign," and then they trade him next summer. They trade him at next year's deadline. It's not like I don't think that Bill Guerin, especially if they lost in the first round, and then he's like, I'm not going to resign. I don't think Bill Guerin's would be like, God damn it, you're playing this season out and we're just running it back. Like the similarly to Rantanen, like there's a possibility where they just flip him and they won't get the same thing back. But again, they'll get one run this year with Quinn Hughes. Like Brock Nelson got Cal Ritchie in a first round pick. I know I talk about that trade at length nonstop, but like that's what Brock Nelson got as an expiring guy with 25 games left in the season. Quentin Hughes still next summer, next deadline, would get you probably a Zeev Boyum quality prospect in 2 first round picks. So it's like the idea that I don't think that he'd be so reckless to go the next 2 seasons and then just walk for nothing. That would be apocalyptic, even though I still, again, wouldn't even hate it if he theoretically did that just because there has been no playoff success in Minnesota. They need to be aggressive. Those fans are diehard, passionate. They deserve their teams to fully go for it. But I think that him walking for absolutely nothing is very, very low. I think him resigning 50%. I think him getting traded next year at some point past July 1st, 30, 8%, no, 40%, and then like 10% that they just ride it out with him both seasons. Like that would just be so irresponsible considering what you gave up and considering he's an unrestricted free agent.
Uh, I wouldn't hate that long term out. It wouldn't be good. It would not be ideal for Minnesota
Yeah.
at all. But like again, like you said, with their lack of success and like we're trying to build something around Kaprizov here, if the absolute end result, worst case scenario is we ride it out, we get 2 playoff runs with Quinn Hughes, and we don't win a cup in those 2 years, I would not hate that. Is it an optimal
If
best case outcome? No, but I would still think that like the process was worth doing, you know?
Yes. I think if they make a Western Conference Finals, it's worth it. They have not won as a franchise. I believe I looked it up in 2003. They got swept. They have not won a game in the Western Conference Finals. So like, yeah, like if they were back to back first round exits, then you're like, holy shit. But if they end that 10 season drought, if they end that 22 season drought, like not every team is going to win the Stanley Cup with their current core. That's just the real reality of it. Some teams are going to go home empty-handed. It's possible that Dallas never wins a Stanley Cup. Probably like a 50-50 shot that Dallas never wins the Stanley Cup with their amazing, amazing core right now. So yeah, with Minnesota, like, yeah, you could have played it out with Steve Boyum, with Rossi, and maybe in 2 to 3 years, you would have with injuries got lucky and as the eighth or ninth best team in the NHL go on some kind of run. But this was so clearly the correct move and correct process by Bill Guerin, in my opinion, as you mentioned.
Yeah, full agree on there. It's right. It is worth bringing up. Not everyone gets to win the cup, especially less so when you have like a handful of dominant super teams like Colorado's
Hmm.
been, like Tampa and Florida have been for like a decade straight. I mean, if you took a snapshot of the roster of, let's say, the San Jose Sharks any year between like 2014 and 2019,
Hmm.
you'd be like, how did this team has to win a cup eventually? And they just never did. And frankly, on paper, that was like a way better core than Minnesota has now. Probably even with Quinn Hughes,
Yeah.
that was a better group of guys, and they didn't win. Like
More balance
sometimes
for
luck
sure.
plays into it more than people think.
Yeah. And again, when the bar is so low for Minnesota, you're perfectly fine with doing this. We got to, before we talk about Vancouver, we got to talk about New Jersey. I don't, people are clowning them. I don't hate them not like giving up some kind of Nemitz, Luke Hughes, one or the other, Mercer, Casey in a first package, just because if he does hit the open market, they are the favorite. So like, I think you can wait and see. Minnesota, there's no chance that he's coming to them in free agency. Like you need to trade for him. You need to show him the culture, show him that you can win, then he'll resign. So I think for New Jersey, the wait and see approach was correct, even though this season is slowly becoming an absolute shit show for them. And if Jack Hughes does not come back soon, it might be out. It might just be completely lost. I don't hate the idea of them just not forcing it for short term success, even though, again, he'd be there for a long time. I think that the process by them on this was smart not rushing this when you might get him for free in 2 years.
Yeah, full agree with you again there. I mean, the Devils don't have this massive treasure trove of trade assets. They have good
Hmm.
young players, but like they have a lot of players who were great trade assets like 3 years ago when they were prospects or rookies. And then now that they've actually like been around the block a little bit, it's kind of like, well, okay, Dawson Mercer's fine. You know, he's not
He's
like
bounced
this
back this year, but yeah,
peak
he's not.
piece. He's been better for sure, but it's kind of, I guess, a thing where like as an unknown thing or like just the one rookie year like Marco Rossi maybe, that's like Dawson Mercer
Hmm.
had his peak trade value back then, and then now that we've seen his floor as like an actually struggling NHL third liner, not super enticing.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, Nemec is really good. He's looking very promising, but he's another guy where like the peak trade
His
value is
track record's not there.
probably 2 years ago when he was a top prospect getting blocked from the NHL, and not a guy who's like,
Hmm.
well, he looks okay in the NHL. He's promising ish. Um,
Yeah.
Given that, I would
He, he
not
he
want
only got
to.
the opportunity because Kovacevic got hurt or something. Like that's
Yeah,
why he got elevated into the lineup.
given all of that, I don't think the Devils giving up everything and blowing up like the entire under 25 except for the Hughes brothers core
Mhm.
just to build around the Hughes brothers. And this is maybe a bit off topic, but like Jack Hughes injury concerns are a real problem. Like, okay, this one was a freak accident that could have happened to anyone. It's the fourth time in 5 years that he's going to miss at least 20 games. Like, at a certain point, you
Yeah.
need to say he's just not consistently available enough to build around.
Mhm.
I would not feel super comfortable building an entire team around Jack and Luke Hughes making like 30% of the money and being the main locker room guys, because like Jack Hughes isn't there enough.
Yeah, and Luke Hughes is just not good this season. Like that's been a problem. Yeah, like they need to reevaluate it, especially with them. Like Minnesota has goaltending figured out. I think we could agree. Whether it comes in the regular season, amazing tandem in the playoffs, one of those guys will get hot. Like Devils have a major goaltending problem right now. Markstrom has an 875. He has been god awful this season. So like it's not just that. And even with them, although they do have the 1-2 center combo compared to Minnesota, they ain't got shit in terms of depth scoring. They're relying on like Paul Cotter to chip in like a sizable amount. So it's like,
Stefan Nosen
no,
was on their first line
it's,
recently, was he not?
yeah. Yeah, like they need to wait and see. They definitely maybe this summer if something goes wrong or if they can get Quinn Hughes for cheap, then you reevaluate it. But right now, when the price was what the Minnesota Wild paid, and I think we agree for Minnesota, it's worth it. Like for New Jersey, not the time, not the place. Figure out goaltending, then maybe do some kind of crazy Quinn Hughes deal.
Yeah, Minnesota's getting 2 playoff runs out of this. I'm not super confident the Devils would get a playoff run out of this year. If
Yeah,
you
they could
if you
still
take
miss.
Nemec off the roster, add Quinn Hughes, and that's the only change you make to the NHL core, I'm not at all convinced the
Mercer has
Devils are a
21
playoff
points right
team
now.
this
Probably been
year.
Mercer too. Yeah. Yeah, like it's people were acting like it's gonna happen, no doubt. But let's move on to the actual Vancouver return. We kind of glossed over the players. But yeah, Marco Rossi, a guy that you have been very high on in the last couple of years. You thought Bill Guerin was an idiot for not giving him a longer term contract. Well, he eventually dumped him as part of this package. So he ended up not really having to deal with those potential contract negotiations. And yeah, Rossi, 60 points last year, 13 points in 17 games. He has 73 points in his last 99 games the last 2 years. I think he's an okay second line center. I think he's going to be a solid to good second line center. I don't see the high end, him potentially being a low end first line center. I just think that I hate to be like about the size, but I think for a center, it does matter to a degree. And he has benefited from playing with Kaprizov a decent amount the last 3 seasons. So still uber skilled. Maybe he could eventually move to the wing and become an elite first liner, but a valuable piece for a Vancouver team that talk about injuries. Like Filipino cannot stay healthy for the life of him. They let Pia Suter walk for some reason. Like he is going to slot in immediately as their second line center and provide immense value. But for a team that had contending aspirations in Minnesota, I understood why they made him expendable and said, we can maybe upgrade this position in a couple months from now by trading Urov and something else.
Yeah, I'm a big Rossi guy, as you said. I think Vancouver is going to be a really good situation for him, honestly, because he's not being asked to be like a contending, floor raising all around player. He's going to be given like 20 minutes a night because who else do they have at forward?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be told your job is just to score, right? We're not going to do the Minnesota thing where we limit minutes because of defensive mistakes. We're not going to do the
Fourth
Minnesota
line.
thing where sometimes you'll get dropped to the bottom six in big games. You just go out there and score points. Yeah, your wings are not going to give you a lot of help. You'll have to sink or swim in that regard. But I fully expect that Rossi on a like low expectation Vancouver, where he's going to get top power play, guaranteed top 6 minutes, 70-point player. I do believe that. I think
Ooh.
pure scoring numbers, he's going to have career years in Vancouver.
70. I could see that in a couple of years. I do think that the
Not
wear and tear
literally
is
this
just so
season,
bad
but
that
like next year,
okay, I
full
was
year
like,
in Vancouver.
next year. It depends. Like if Jonathan Lekkerimäki, if they finally give him an opportunity, that I think that yeah, that could be a really really special 1-2 combo like behind an Elias Pettersson. But yeah, I agree with you. Like it just seemed like he got in his own head, especially considering what management basically treated him in negotiations. Where a change of scenery wasn't some kind of like horrendous situation, but I do think a change of scenery will vastly benefit him because he was a guy that did have all this hype, then kind of went through a rough patch. He had some kind of like long COVID and then had to work his way back up. Finally, kind of cracks it at the NHL, then gets tossed back down. You're too small. And now, hopefully, Vancouver will take care of him. And as you mentioned, opportunities galore. There's no reason why he should not be playing immediately 17 minutes a night. Yeah,
Immediately
very
20.
skilled.
He's their second best offensive player right
20.
now. Why not? He is their
I
second
don't know
best
about
offensive player right now.
20 is a lot for a forward. God damn. He's the third best. Pedersen, Besser, Rossi. I'd say Garland's a better player right now, but they should play Rossi more, and they might end up trading Garland, which we'll talk about soon. But okay, moving on. Zeev Boyum. He was viewed as kind of a consensus top 15 prospect entering the year. I was closer to like 11 through 15 on him, if I'm going to be honest. I just always didn't think that he was that good defensively, and that's been his main problem at the NHL level. He has some of the worst defensive metrics in the NHL, but the offense like is undeniable. He immediately helped out the power play to a decent degree. I don't think that he has, like some people called him Quinn Hughes light when he was coming up. I never thought he had that kind of potential, just considering I didn't think the offense was as translatable. I don't think that he's good of a skater, but I think that he can be a good top pair offensive defenseman. Like similarly to Rossi, a solid, good second pair guy. I think Boyum could be a number two on a playoff team, on maybe a contender as an offensive defenseman, get you 50-ish points. I don't think the defense will ever be a plus, but I think it will improve and just be like an average. So a valuable piece. I never really viewed him in that like top 7, 8 kind of prospect range, but definitely valuable. And considering what he's done at every single level, although this year it has been a little bit power play heavy, I think 8 of his 14 points come on the power play. Still, to have 14 points in 31 games at 20 years old is impressive, and I think that it's a very good piece for Vancouver. What's your thoughts on Boyum?
Yeah, agree basically all around again. Is he going to be a franchise D man like Quinn Hughes is?
Some people think that he
Very,
is.
very low chance. I don't think that's realistic at all. Can he
Mhm.
be a guy who's like firmly top pair, could be number one on a not good team and have that not be the craziest thing in the world? I think that's like a fair ceiling. I mean, he
You know what?
definitely needs to work on it.
Let me chime in real quick. He
Go
could
for
be
it.
like a Morgan Riley. He could be a Morgan Riley. like,
He could be. He
not a number one, not a number one, but if he had a 68-point season out of nowhere around elite talent, it wouldn't shock me one bit. But year over year, and especially that defensive impact, might be a little bit shaky.
Yeah, like it's I think his ceiling is in the tier where like spiritually he's not a number one. Technically, he's in the top 32 defensemen in the league
Points
for
wise, yeah.
a stretch there. Um,
Hmm.
he definitely needs to work on the defensive side of his game. A lot of work needs to be done there. But like at his age, with how young he came into the league, like that's not unusual. It's not like we've never in history seen like an all offense
Yeah,
defenseman develop the defensive part of their game over time. I mean, Quinn Hughes did that, right? Quinn Hughes coming
yeah.
into the league was an extremely offensive focused player who could
Hmm.
not keep the puck out of his own net for the life of him. And over like 7 years, he's developed into a really good defensive player. Is Boyum going to
Yeah.
develop like that? I doubt it, but he doesn't need to, right? If he develops into he's an offensive big plus, he's a defensive, neutral, zero, flat line.
Hmm.
That's a really good player to have.
That's Yeah, yeah, and it's why they've kind of taken this quantity over quality perspective. And then Liam Ogren, I was kind of shocked when I actually saw his numbers this season. He had
They're
37
not
points
good.
in 41 AHL games last year. And after that, that was his draft year plus 3. I'm like, okay, they're gonna have a good middle sixer. 0 points in 18 games this year and a 30.3% expected goals percentage. I didn't notice him whenever I watched Minnesota. He didn't play a ton. I didn't realize that it was that bad. So for him, if we're gonna be honest, like at this point, Best case, he's a solid middle sixer. Worst case, he's just not an NHLer. But we knew that. We knew Rossi. It's not like I was like, oh, he's a blue chip like guy. It was obviously Boyum and Rossi. And that first round pick, it's not going to be high. It's at best going to be like 23rd overall. Minnesota's going to finish as a top 8 team in the regular season. So yeah, it's basically a solid to good second line center, a top pair offense defenseman, and like a third liner. And hopefully you can just get like a solid to good middle sixer, solid to good second pair guy with that first round pick. I like it for Vancouver just overall that they went this direction. I was afraid that they were going to do something where they got like a 27-year-old second line center that's a very good player and then like a B to B plus prospect in a first round pick. I thought they were going to go to the direction where like we can kind of retool it on the fly. We can stay competitive. The fact that they went with all young guys, and Rossi is an established NHLer at this point, but he still only turned 24 like a month or two ago. I was very impressed with that approach from Vancouver, a team that has consistently said that we're not going to tear it down to the studs. And granted, this isn't a total tear down. Like you, as we mentioned, Rossi can walk in and put up 55, 60 points. But I'm very happy from that perspective for Vancouver, the direction that they're choosing.
I mean, the direction they're choosing is rebuilding. Like
Yeah,
they're not calling it that. They don't have to call it that. They're a bottom 5 team who just traded away their best player
dead
for
last.
4 very young,
Yeah,
players, first essentially 4 first rounders, right? One of the guys has been in the league for
ratio.
a good chunk of time. The other guy's been in the league for half a year, right?
But had
This
hype.
is a rebuild trade, which is good.
Hmm.
Vancouver needs to. I think it's become very apparent that we talk about cores that just don't get it done, and that like early 2020s Vancouver core. Once Elias Pettersson fell off, and once we had enough time to know that like this is a real fall off, it's like this core is just never going to win anything. The
Hmm.
Vancouver Canucks with Elias Pettersson as their best forward will never be a serious cup contender. So you accept reality, and Quinn Hughes, the most trade value on the market. Look, is are Canucks fans going to be happy with this trade? Probably not, but they
They probably
probably
should
wouldn't
be.
be happy with literally any Quinn Hughes trade. I think, given the circumstances, this is about as good of a return as could have hoped for.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think Canucks fans were just stuck being in mid, and obviously they're not mid this season on the ice. They're god awful, but like the direction of this franchise since that 2024 season has just been consistently trying to stay somewhat competitive. So the fact that they're going down this direction, it is very encouraging compared to if they tried to continue to get Quinn Hughes to resign and then he walked for nothing. That would have been the ultimate disaster. But yeah, they actually have an injection of young talent. They have an extra first round pick this year. And when you look at who they could potentially trade, I think Pettersson and Demko are probably staying put just because their contracts are pretty bad and they're very injury prone. But I think Connor Garland can get you a first and like a solid prospect. He only has 1 year left at $4.95 million. And then he has a 6x6 that kicks in. He has no trade protection right now, but then he has a no move. So you probably got to trade him now. Like, I don't know why you let that kick in because, like, again, if you're selling Quinn Hughes, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, Garland and Kiefer Sherwood, I didn't mention him, right? Kiefer Sherwood definitely needs to be traded. His shooting percentage, like Bender, is finally starting to come back down to earth. Trade him tomorrow. And they could really get this starting to cook by having a top 5 pick this year, 2 first round picks, maybe they're late first round picks, and just a bunch of young, exciting prospects. They're kind of like, and funny enough, because they had that big trade back in 2023, they're kind of like the Islanders. Like after the Islanders last season, now obviously the Islanders got extremely lucky by jumping in the lottery. Vancouver's just going to be that bad that they might get first overall, where like it might not be a full teardown in part because you can't do a full teardown with Pedersen and Demko, but like if you stink this year, if you stink next year, if you sell Garland, Sherwood, one of Besser and Hronik over the next 2 years, they won't have the brightest future in the NHL. But compared to what they were staring down at the start of this season, if they did re-sign Quinn Hughes, is far far superior. And as we talked about before, like you got to have a direction. You can't be the Seattle Kraken. They're the most relevant team in the NHL because they don't have a direction. They're just running out mid. You got to make a choice. And hopefully, although previously Rutherford's comments had been very like, we are just going to try to stay competitive. Like if you're trading Quinn Hughes, you got to blow it up to a decent degree.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you said, they only have so many pieces that you can work with. no one's touching the Pettersson contract, at least not until like 2 years left on it, which
Maybe Carolina if they were desperate.
I
Maybe.
don't. The more sample size you get of Pettersson clearly not being a number one center, the harder it's going to be to justify. Like you can kind of say, oh, he's had one bad year and maybe he'll rebound here. This is like the third season in a
22 and
row where this
28
is
right now.
not a number one center. And you're $11 million for how many more years? Is it
11,
five?
11.6,
Ugh,
11.6 for 6. Yeah, it's not
brutal
good. It's not
contract
good.
there. Besser probably has, you literally just signed him. Like there's probably some trade value
He
there.
has no
I think they're
move.
not even allowed to trade him until so many months pass though. I
Yeah,
don't
like January
understand why
15th, I
Besser
think it
wanted
is.
to stay in Vancouver, and it just
He's
feels like a whole
regretting it
waste
right
of
now.
time for Vancouver to keep him. Yeah, Hronik has some value, probably. Kiefer
I think
Sherwood,
he is a
see if
decent
anyone
amount.
wants to bite on him. Uh, Marcus Pettersson, the guy who you literally traded a first
Yeah,
for
forgot
last
him.
year, try to
12th overall, too.
recoup some of that. Yeah, that trade did not age well.
Yeah, they're still in a bad spot, but again, at least now they're going down the young direction. If they ended up, I'm trying to think, I can't think of, but if they traded for some guy like in his mid 20s or late 20s and just like tried to retool on the fly, that would have been a disaster. But the future is looking decently bright. What other stars do you think could get traded now? Now that the Quinn Hughes domino has fallen, any guys you got your eye on?
Um, no one specific. I mean, it's so rare, I feel like, that these trades happen until a team's back is against the wall that, okay, he's a free agent soon, and we pretty much
Uh-huh.
know that he's not going to stay here. Like, I'm sure a lot of the attention that you're going to put on is about the Buffalo guys, but
Buffalo.
if
Their
if
backs have
Kevin
been stapled to the wall for years.
if Kevin Adams is
They've just
consistent
sucked.
on one thing, it's his commitment to just kind of like existing without rocking the boat too much.
Yeah. Bring in
Like
Jason
he did not
Zucker to
trade
get him
Jack
over there.
Eichel until he absolutely had to. Jack Eichel was in like year 4 of trade rumors by the time he actually got traded.
Yeah. Yeah, with Thompson and Dahlin, it's tough because like if I'm them, I'm looking around and being like, this is a shit show. We're yet again under 500. But they do have Thompson has 4 years left. Dahlin has 7 years, I think. So like Buffalo's not rushed like a Quinn Hughes with Vancouver. And I think Dahlin has a full no move, I think, as well. He got a super deal. Yeah, if you got $11 million, definitely got a no move. So like they're not as rushed right now to potentially get something done, but their situation has been even worse for even longer. Some other names, I'm just throwing this out here. I'm not saying there's any like substance to it, but Ottawa's starting to lose a decent amount again. Brady Kachuk, he only has like 2 years left on his contract. Not saying it's happening this season, but I'm saying going forward. And two guys that like I don't know what their breaking point would be, but like Roman Yossi and Philip Forsberg have given like everything to that franchise, and Barry Trotz has like burnt it down in the last 2 to 3 years. So, like, at what point are they like, are we just gonna? Forsberg's still relatively young, but Yossi especially, like, are we just gonna retire? Not making the playoffs for final 5, 6 years, like that's just a sad way to go out. Does Roman Yossi just say like, I'm the greatest player of all time in the franchise's history? Forsberg's another Mount Rushmore guy. Do those guys at some point just have a breaking point and are like, dude, you need to enter a rebuild. Trade us to somewhere where we could go win. That's something that's at least interesting. I know that these guys have lives. They probably don't want to leave Nashville, but at some point, do they just say fuck it? Like it's been such a shit show. But beyond that, yeah, I feel like most stars are in a pretty good place. Like I can't really think of anybody else that would want out relatively soon.
I mean, it helps that in the Eastern Conference, like 13 of the teams are at least pretty
Yeah, are in the
decent
mix.
or headed on an upswing direction, right?
Yeah,
The West is
we
kind of
refuse to talk
more
about Crosby too.
West is kind of more no man's land, but in the East, it feels like everyone is either, except Buffalo, everyone is either we're semi competitive right now, or like
Yeah,
we have a very clear direction. We are in this stage of a rebuild. And like like Crosby, you just said there. Crosby's in Pittsburgh because he wants to be there. Like
Wow.
they are in a
Yeah.
rebuild. No one's under an illusion that this is a serious contending team. Crosby
Yeah.
knows he's on a rebuilding team and he's okay with that. If he wasn't okay with that, he would have been traded yesterday. The fact that he's
Yeah.
still
And
there
again, like
means he is happy to be the old man on a rebuild.
yeah, and especially considering he won 3 Stanley Cups. It's not like a Roman Yossi where it's like that's the literally the one thing missing from his career. He has a Norris. He has gonna finish with like almost 1,000 career points. Like that would really put him. I think he's gonna be a Hall of Famer regardless. It's actually surprising how many people don't think Roman Yossi. I remember
Oh,
I
he's
read a
easily
poll
a
like
Hall of
this
Famer.
summer. And it was
The
like
one thing I'll say
50-50
about
when his career's all said and done.
the
What?
one oh, the one thing I'll say about Roman Yossi is I'm not calling him a negative value player, but I think that
It is a fat
he's
contract, yeah.
very borderline with at his age, at his cap hit, how many teams actually want him. Like if money didn't exist, he would make pretty much any team better, but like is he a true first pair guy with his at his age with his injury problems,
I
right?
think
This has
he's
been a
first
couple years
pair.
now of kind of persistent injury problems.
Yeah, yeah, he has dealt with some injuries this year as well. But as we talked about with Quinn Hughes, Minnesota having the money to do that, teams are going to have money with the salary cap rising. Like until everybody is on non flat cap era contracts that are like absolute steals now, like teams are going to have money. Someone will find, yes, he's probably, if he gets traded next, he's probably closer to $7 to $8 million defenseman. But like a team like Carolina that we think is a contender did not spend like eight or $10 million this past offseason. Like teams can find the money to make this work. Other teams in terms of stars, like Winnipeg and St. Louis made the playoffs last year. I don't think Robert Thomas, Kyle Connor just signed an extension. Winnipeg's fucked, but I think all their players like to be there. And yeah, St. Louis, like this, they're not this bad, and they have somewhat of a future.
The thing
Not that
is
good of a
too, I mean,
future.
St. Louis is another team where like I don't know, are these stars really stars? Is this actually a serious winning
They have one
core or are
star
you like,
ish.
St. Louis I'm maybe lower on Rob Thomas than the average person, but I think that St. Louis could trade Rob Thomas and Jordan Kyrou this season, and like it would
Ooh,
not be a massive
Pittsburgh.
big deal. The fan base would not be angry that you got rid of Rob Thomas and Jordan Kyrou.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even
Yeah, they're
necessarily need to like do a rebuild if you got rid of those guys. Like neither of them is so monumental that like you need them or else the core isn't a core anymore. Like you could trade Jordan Kyrou for another guy around the same age and just do a retool.
the problem is they don't really have a core. It's just Robert Thomas and then like a bunch of like B plus young guys. Like Holloway clearly last year. I mean, he's playing good, but like he's not gonna be a consistent 70 point like absolute beast. Yeah, he's 17 points in 33 games right now. That's probably closer to what Holloway is. Still an amazing offer sheet to get him for a third round pick. But neighbors, good player, not great. Like they're kind of just filled with a bunch of above average to good
Yeah,
right
like
now, and no
Perico,
real game
Fowler,
breaking talent.
solid, but they're not young. They're not like elite guys. Jordan Bennington, like literally
Hoffer's
no
not the same.
clue if he's going to be good this week. How good he was last week has no bearing on how good or bad he's going to be next week.
You want to move on to the Jarry trade? I don't know how this turned
Let's
into
do it.
just
Let's
like
do it.
a St. Louis slander. The one Minnesota fan to watch is be like, "What the fuck?" Be like, "Me?" 42. He's like, "How'd I get lumped into this?" But Tristan Jarry is heading to the Edmonton Oilers as well as Samuel Poulin for a 2029 second round pick. Stuart Skinner and Brett Kulak. I've already kind of given my take over on various social media platforms, so I'll let you handle it, and then I'll just kind of react off it.
Alrighty. Number one, not the most important or the main thing, but the thing that I want to address that I don't see other people talking about. Kulak was really useful and solid for them in the playoff run last year. I know he hasn't
Yeah,
been great this year. I know he's an older guy, but like Brett Kulak was good last season. He was a reasonably important part of why they made the finals in the first place. So to see him just get
23 minutes a night last year. Jeez.
yeah, he was
In
a
the
serious
playoffs.
contributor for them, right? He was not
Yeah.
packing offense the way Bouchard or Wallman were, or even Ekholm. Um, but as like a theoretically bottom pair guy that ended up playing top 4 minutes because he's like one of your main penalty killers, among other things, like he's a solid player. And to see him just like
Mhm.
tossed in and no one's talking about how he's gone, like, whoa, now Edmonton's already a really bad defense. Now we need to replace,
They
not
got
20
the
minutes a night
uh,
this year.
Stan, whatever, blanking on his name. They got Statsny, Spencer Statsny, who actually does have good underlying numbers. That's their replacement for him, but yeah, like he does not have the experience that Brett Kulak does for a bottom pair playoff contender.
Maybe this is my fault and your fans are going to expose me here for not watching enough hockey. The very first time I heard of Spencer Stasny was seeing that he was traded to Edmonton the same day as the Jarry trade.
Yeah,
That was literally the
yeah,
first time in my life that I've heard of this guy. Maybe he's
yeah.
solid.
It's
I
fun.
don't know. I can't say he's bad. I've never seen him play hockey.
Yeah, he's
Um,
26. He had 9 points in 30 games, but he's only playing 1452. So he's one of those guys where like the advanced stats pop, but like he's playing third pair sheltered minutes. Like it's the Edmonton Oilers fans like he's better than Kulak right off rip, and it's like let's calm down. They also said that like Ty Emberson, because his card was amazing, was going to be behind Evan Bouchard as like the second pair right-handed defenseman. So let's
yeah, I
chill a
know.
little bit. But you want to talk about the goalies? I think you're the only person on earth to start with the Brett Kulak aspect, which I love. Which I love that unique perspective.
Yeah, so as far as the goalies go, this is the most lateral move, the most sideways, not upward move. I mean, I just don't have it in me to be nice about this, right? Tristan Jarry, he's older than Stuart Skinner. He's more expensive than Stuart Skinner. He's signed for more years than Stuart Skinner. You have Jarry for 2 more years
Mhm.
after this, even if he's like so bad you want to waive him. Um, which I bring up because Tristan Jarry was waived like a podcast
A
topic we
year
did
ago,
last
yeah.
winter was about Tristan
Roll
Jarry
the
being
clip, yeah,
waived.
yeah.
It's a fun full circle there. Like Tristan Jarry is better than Stuart Skinner this year. Like if you just came out of a coma this October and started watching how they played in October and November, you might be like, "Oh,
Mhm.
Tristan Jarry, this seems like an upgrade." He has literally been worse than Stuart Skinner overall over the last 3 seasons before this one, right?
Yeah,
Cumulatively, the 3 years before this one, Jari has been a slightly worse player than Stuart Skinner.
yeah.
Right? Is
You're not wrong. I mean,
he's been behind a bad defense, granted, but like so is Stuart Skinner, maybe, right? That's not an excuse. Edmonton needs a goalie who can stop goals behind a not great defense.
hmm Yeah, they're just banking on him going back to that 2020, 2022 form. I think he had a 921. It was only like 35 games that year, but in 2022, he had like a 919 as their full-time starter. So it's a little odd just because he has no playoff experience. His only playoff experience is a bad playoff experience against my New York Islanders. And yeah, like it's just the fact that they waited around so long, so goddamn long. So many guys got traded. And I'm not gonna be like they could have got Logan Thompson. Obviously, Vegas was not trading Logan Thompson in division into their main rival. But like, why didn't you take a flyer on Darcy Kemper? I know at the time those viewed as a horrible contract, but like, why didn't you take a shot on that? Why didn't you go after who are some other guys that got you? I literally just did the video. I could pull it up. A Blackwood, a Olmark, something like that. Like the fact that they waited so long, and as a result, like Saros isn't getting traded because that's Barry Trotz admitting, like, I'm a fucking idiot. Why did I choose Saros over Askarov? He's not going anywhere. Binnington, uh, same thing. Like he's not playing good right now, and he also has another year at $6 million. Like they had absolutely no options at this point. Like it's so funny when Oilers fans would throw out like Sorokin, like, oh, maybe we can land fucking Sorokin. Like, no, Sorokin's a top 5 goalie in the NHL. You just don't move those unless you're fully freaking nuking it. So yeah, they waited around. Tristan Jarry is not that much of an upgrade, and they gave up a second round pick. And you hear people say, like, "Oh, it's a 2029 second round pick. That pick's probably not going to work out, and that's in 2029." It's not about what the pick's going to become. It's about what you could have got for the pick in like different packages at the deadline for different players. Like I hate when people talk about like that, but yeah, the fact you had to give up assets like to get the equalish goalie that has more term at double the cap hit. And if you're Kyle Dubas, just talking from the Pittsburgh perspective, I've said this at length, like they're going to get a third or a fourth round pick for Kulak. Someone's going to give up a fourth or a fifth round pick for Stuart Skinner, just because although the experience hasn't always been great, he's one of the most experienced playoff goalies. Like some team that doesn't have really much in terms of playoff experience is going to say, fuck it. Like Stuart Skinner can provide some value. He can come in middle of the series and not be absolutely shook. So yeah, it's a Dubas masterclass. He just loves scooping up these second and third round picks. I think I saw the stat. Let me see if I have it. I think they have 14 second and third round picks between 2026 to 2029, 2028. Like it's insane. Like what he's able to accumulate. Granted, second, third round picks aren't that valuable, but like to potentially move up and get guys that you want, it's great by Pittsburgh and for Edmonton. This ownership or this management is kind of a disaster between this and your favorite, the Trent Frederick extension.
Yeah, I mean, literally last year, Tristan Jarry was a save percentage in the 800s. Pittsburgh tried to get rid of him. No one wanted him on waivers. They dumped him to the minors for a stretch, but he makes too much money to keep him down there. Like it's just not at all practical. I think it's, if the Oilers win a cup and Jarry is there, then maybe they look great and I'm dumb for questioning it. But like they could have won a cup with Stuart Skinner playing flat 900 save percentage goaltending if they got like 3 lucky bounces.
Yeah, in 2024 they lost by 1 in game 7, right? Like last year Florida was just like a fucking wagon. But
the year before last year, they lost like a 1-goal game 7. Like you were 2 bounces away from Stuart Skinner and his playoff save percentage of 891, leading you to a Stanley Cup. Now you're taking Tristan Jarry, career save percentage in the playoffs of 889. Like it's not an upgrade. Maybe you win the cup because you did something different, but like Jarry's not actually a better player, I don't believe.
Yeah, like again, the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup and Darcy Kemper was fucking horrible. Like just because even if they win the Stanley Cup, I think you unless he plays good, unless he objectively has like a 9 over a 900 and like 5 goals saved above expected, like even in that scenario, like there's a reality where Stuart Skinner still wins the Stanley Cup for you. But yeah, I think just a lot of it has to do with, although like we won't hear about it, like I'm sure the locker room, McDavid, who had previously defended Stuart Skinner, probably eventually just hit his breaking point. It was like, I was told that we're going to build it the right way and make changes. So get this goaltending situation figured out, make some kind of change. But the problem with this mainly is it handicaps them to potentially do something down the line. Like if you did like a mini thing, just brought in some kind of goaltender, yes, it might not have as much success, but at least you could open yourself up to potentially have a goaltender come open this summer. Now you'd have to move Jarry in that kind of trade. It becomes just like you limit.
No one's going to want Jarry.
Moves.
If the Oilers
don't
have
to package
him this year and they want to trade Jarry this summer, they're going to need to either like attach draft picks to get rid of him or do the Jack Campbell contract in the AHL.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like it's maybe it works out this year, but if it doesn't and he plays bad, you're in an even worse spot than right now with Stuart Skinner. Is basically what I'm saying. So it's just very disappointing for a team where you thought, oh, after McDavid signed his 2-year deal, that management is going to be locked the hell in. They have been literally anything but, and this deal just signals that further.
McDavid took a discount to help his good friend Trent Frederick buy a second boat is what happened here.
Yes.
Like it's,
I think the Oilers saw he won the Memorial Cup with the Edmonton Oil Kings and just assumed that he could do the same. I think that
but like you brought it up with the Avs. Like teams can win with bad goaltending if they're just such a juggernaut otherwise. Like the Oilers don't just have one need or one flaw. There's honestly quite a few flaws on paper. Like the point is you need to get good players, right? If this cap space and these assets could have got you like an actually really good second liner, instead of like a
Yeah.
mediocre non-upgrade at goalie. Do that, and
Yeah.
then maybe you lose again this year. But like, if you're trying to get a good goalie, get a good goalie is what I'm saying. And if you can't get a good goalie, then don't waste assets to get a not good one.
On Tristan
Use
Jarry.
those
Yeah.
assets on a good number two center, right? Ryan Nugent Hopkins has been there for a decade and a half. Is Ryan
Well, I
Nugent
mean,
Hopkins
Draisaitl plays second line
actually
center.
like a peak player there? You could upgrade that, right? You're allowed to. He's not the
He
best
only
guy
makes
in the world in that
$5 million. That's
role.
tough. That's tough. Yeah, I agree that he can't be your third best player or third best forward on a Stanley Cup winning team, but he makes $5 million. Like he's that'd be tough to upgrade over just because of the cost analysis. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, they would have just been better like upgrading over trading Kulak in a second round pick to get a better third pair defenseman or something like that. That probably would have helped their overall defense in not allowing goals compared to just doing this lateral move. Where you also give up Kulak and Skinner. Like
Their number three
just
goal scorer
mind
this year is Jack Roslovic. Like,
blowing.
get an upgrade to your
They
depth scoring.
snagged
It
on
would
like
help you
opening
more.
night. Yeah, it's bad, but yeah, it's been a wild the last 24 hours in the NHL with those two trades. Babiak, thanks for hopping on with me as always.
Of course.
All right, we'll be seeing the next one. Peace. Damn, nice even 1 hour. Thanks, man.